not applying to Cambly because you don't know what you'll talk about, or perhaps you think that you won't know what to say or you won't know what to teach. My name is Linda, and I have been on Cambly for over 2 years now. They call me teacher, or they call me Teacher Linda G. And I have to tell you, when I first started on Cambly, I had no idea what I was doing. Okay, I have to tell you that. Although I'm a teacher and I did learn how to teach English as a foreign language, I didn't have a lot of resources and I didn't really know how I could teach English on a platform like Cambly. So I've learned that sometimes the students come with a lesson in mind. When I open up my platform, the teaching platform, there's a lesson that the student has already chosen. So I start teaching that lesson. Of course, if the student wants to have a conversation, I'll ask them, do you want to do this lesson? Or would you like to have a conversation with me? Sometimes they choose the lesson and sometimes they'll choose the conversation. So it makes it easier that way, right? But sometimes they say, I don't care. And after a while, once you get to know the student, you might think, well, maybe it's better to do a bit of reading. So I'm going to share some resources with you. And I'm also going to share a few ways that you could share these resources with the students. I'm going to share my screen with you. All right, so you could see on this particular page, this is the Cambly library. You can see at the top here, once you're in the platform, you'll notice that there are different tabs, and this one is the library tab. And under the library tab, you'll see there are lots of resources. I'm just going to scroll down. You'll see there are speaking games. There are some courses. Oftentimes a student will come to class with one of these courses, and you can see here, there's a beginner level with 10 lessons or a more intermediate level with 10 lessons and so on. And of course, there's lessons on professional development, which are great. Lessons on how to express yourself, exam preparations, lots of lessons. Now, one thing that I started doing at the very beginning when I started teaching, these lessons are fairly new, but when I was starting to teach a couple of years ago, I had to upload my own lessons. And so here are my saved links. I'll just show you a couple of things that I had saved in my library. I had found some really interesting Cambly lessons, so you'll see them here. But I also had found, I'm just going to scroll down, I also had found some other interesting idiom practices, for example, or I had found an article on Engo, and I'll show you that website in just a few minutes. I had found some articles on transition words, and so I uploaded them to the platform, to the Cambly platform. And I did that by clicking this new link here and by inserting the link to the article and the title of the article. And that's how all of these articles were eventually saved. Now I'm going to share a few other sites with you too. I really enjoy this site, and I'll show you an example of sentences. These are all updated daily. You can see this one here, study just 2% of conversations end when we want them. An article on breweries. Let me just click on one site, one of the articles, just to give you an example. This is engo.com. This one was actually published March 29, 2021. They always have some nice pictures and lots of interesting vocabulary. So I will go through the vocabulary with my students. I will get them to read the vocabulary, read the explanation, the definition. I'll get them to read the sentence, and then we'll talk about the sentence, and I'll get the students to talk about different ways of using that word. And then we'll go into the article. And oftentimes, this is just my style, and every tutor has their own style. I'm just giving you some examples. I'll go through one paragraph at a time, and then we'll discuss that paragraph. Maybe the student didn't understand any words. Maybe they have an opinion on what this paragraph is about. So this is one example of a site that that I use for articles. There's a lot of other ones, but I'm just showing you this one. And sometimes a student will come to me and say, today I want to learn about phrasal verbs, and maybe I don't have any content ready. So I'll do a quick search while I'm talking with the student, and I'll come up with a link, and then I'll share my screen with them. So there's an example of phrasal verbs. It's a list of phrasal verbs. It's great. So oftentimes, when you're on the platform, I'm just going to go back to the library. When I'm on the teaching platform, I can't show you that right now, but when I'm in the classroom, there's a link so I can share my screen. And basically I click on the link and it starts sharing the screen, and we're both able to see the same screen. So for example, if I'm sharing the phrasal verb list, I'll be able to see that, and the student will also be able to see that through the screen sharing function on the Cambly website, which is a great feature. So not only can we share an article to read, we can also share YouTube videos, right? You can share different things. So, if you ever think that you're not sure what to teach or what to talk about, I'm going to show you another thing that I found really interesting. I'm going to continue to share my screen with you, and let me go back to this site here. I found, and I'm just going to type in Google conversation questions for ESL. That's just an example for ESL adults. And conversation questions, you can see here, there's a lot of great ESL conversation topics. So if a student wants to have a conversation and I am not able to think of different topics, I love this particular site. So here you can see here, there's lists of different topics. List of different topics, all sorts of different topics. I'm just going to show you an example. If I chose advice, now oftentimes I will ask the student, what do you want to talk about? I want to talk about advice. Sometimes they'll ask me, they'll say, I don't care, we can talk about anything. So I'll just randomly choose a conversation topic. When I click on that, what's really interesting is that there's a list of questions. And sometimes I'll copy and paste the question in the chat box so the student can see it as well. Or I'll simply say, okay, let's start with this one. What 3 pieces of advice will you give your children? And of course, if they don't have children, then I would have to rephrase that. I probably would say, what 3 pieces of advice would you give your children if you had some? So, I just use this as a guide. So very interesting support resources available either on Cambly, on the Cambly website, through the library, or tons of resources available online. When you're ready to apply for a position at Cambly, use my link below. You'll find that the process is fairly simple, and I've also created a video for that as well. So don't forget now, you can do this, right? You can do this. There's a lot of resources available for you. Have fun now. Bye-bye.